principal organizers here at the Chicago Film Society. We're very happy to see so many people here for this wonderful film. We're here tonight to see The Plot Against Harry, which I've been trying not to say the trouble with Harry, albeit The Plot Against Harry. Both great movies. This has been re-released in a new print by our friends at the Film Desk. The Film Desk is really just one guy, Jake Perlin, who's a very good friend and advocate of obscure, beautiful movies released on film. And it's sort of through his efforts alone that Michael Romer's films have been re-released in the past few years, and he's put a ton of money and effort into getting them back on screen. So we're very flattered that he wanted us specifically to screen this in Chicago, yeah, we're really looking forward to showing it to you guys. Before the feature, we have a short film by the Softy brothers. This is, I think, Adam Sandler's Chicago Film Society premiere in this beautiful 6-minute short. So that comes directly from the filmmakers. Again, very happy to show it to you guys. Few little housekeeping notes. Please silence your cell phones for the duration of the screening. If you have to talk to anyone, take it outside. And then we have a bunch of other great programs coming up. Next week here, we have Kirk Douglas, and more importantly, Kirk Douglas's really squeaky shoes, and what's the title? Paths of Glory. One of the great films of all time. Not a W.C. Fields movie. Usually we show W.C. Fields before Thanksgiving, but we're taking a break this year. And then the following Wednesday, the 29th, we have The New World, the Terrence Malick film. And then on December 11th, at the Music Box, we have, it's going to be an enormous program celebrating the 100th anniversary of 16mm. If enough people buy pre-sale tickets, we will buy a cake. So get your tickets now. That's all I have to say, I think. We're really, really pleased to have Jonathan Rosenbaum, one of the great Chicago film critics and one of our favorite speakers on films, here to talk about the movie you're about to see. So give it up for Jonathan.
I'm glad a nice sized crowd turned up. I'm going to try to explain why I think Michael Romer is a kind of undiscovered continent, even though the Film Society has discovered him. I think we have trouble pigeonholing him, and I think that's part of what makes him so interesting. Reminds me, actually, I'm going to start with an anecdote that's not about Michael Romer, but actually about a story that Raul Ruiz, the Chilean filmmaker, once told me, that when he was very young, he actually was studying in the writers program at the University of Iowa. And he was in a drama class he was taking. The teacher said, all drama is based on conflict. And he raised his hand and said, I'm sorry, but I don't think that's true. I don't think that all drama is based on conflict. And the teacher said, well, you're wrong. So Raul Ruiz didn't know what to do, so he went to talk to one of the faculty members, who actually was Kurt Vonnegut Jr. And he said, what do you think I should do? He said, I think you should leave the program. So he left the program. Now, The Plot Against Harry is not a drama exactly, it's sort of a comedy. But I think I guess one could question whether it has conflict or not. In any case, I think even though we tend to think that our world is being destroyed today by politicians, I would like to correct that impression. In my own conviction is the world that we know today it tends to be destroyed by politicians and publicists. and I think publicists play a big role in this. This has affected me a lot because I put together a collection recently of, let's say, 100 pieces that I've written that was different from my other books in the sense that instead of having just film criticism, it also collected some of my literary criticism and some of my jazz criticism. And it took me 2 years to find a publisher. And I had to give up on academic presses because 2 of the leading academic presses had editors who wanted to publish the book, but they were overruled by the publicists in both cases because they basically, I guess they saw it as cross-market. And basically, if something has to be, you have to be able to figure out how to do an ad for it before it can actually be produced. I'm sure a lot of films and projects for films get strangled in their, from birth because they don't have one can't think of the right ads for them. And of course, the whole idea for what publicists see as what's advertisable is an existing market. The idea of creating a new market is verboten. And I think to me, it was kind of shocking to discover that publicists have more power at the University of California Press and the Columbia University Press than the editors, because the editors at both presses wanted to do my book, and the publicists said no, and they had the final word. I think that the amazing thing to me about Michael Romer is that he really reinvents himself with every project in such a way that it's the exact opposite of someone like Woody Allen, where we know when we see a Woody Allen movie, we can even tell from the credits that it's a Woody Allen movie. Everything is sort of like predefined. And so the notion that we're still living with, I think, comes from Reagan economics, which is basically that you start with a market that's already been successful, and then you drill it into the ground, you exhaust it. And I think that this leaves room for somebody like Michael Romer. Now, he was born in Berlin in a well-to-do Jewish family, January the 1st, 1928. And this was, of course, by the time he was, into the early 30s, Hitler was beginning to rise in prominence. And when he was 11, he actually got shipped off to England, where he went to a private school there. Then, when he was 17, he emigrated to the United States and went to Harvard, where he made his first feature. A first feature that was called A Touch of the Times, and which he later described as his most successful film, although I don't know of anybody who's seen it, in recent years, because it was low budget and it made its money back when he showed it at Harvard. I don't know much more about it than that, except that it's, by reputation, one of the first independent films ever done at American University, perhaps the very first. After that, I first became aware of him during the period of the New Wave in the early 60s with a film called Nothing But a Man, a rather extraordinary film. It's about a black couple in Alabama, played by Ivan Dixon and Abby Lincoln. And I'm from Alabama, and I'm very sensitive to people getting things wrong in terms of accents and other things, and I thought this was like perfect. And I didn't understand how it was done. But it was not a real big success, although I think it did well at sort of European film festivals and the like. But it was in theaters, and I was very impressed by it. He kind of worked as a team with someone who got a bigger reputation than him, named Robert M. Young, who was mainly known for documentaries and sort of docudramas of different kinds. But it was successful enough where he was basically given a kind of blank check, so to speak, to make another feature, which is the feature you're going to see tonight, The Plot Against Harry. And he spent years preparing it, literally years. Apart from spending a year writing the script, he spent a whole year just doing research for it. And that included getting a job as assistant to a caterer in Long Island who basically catered for bar mitzvahs and Jewish weddings. And then he followed a lawyer around into various trials in New York City. He investigated the numbers racket in New York, which is relevant to this. And he also even went to the trouble of interviewing a call girl. So he did all this kind of things, and then he spent a year writing it. And when he showed the film originally to friends, nobody laughed. And so he decided it must be, I guess, again, it was, if he showed it to any, distribution companies, they didn't laugh either. So he decided just it was a mistake, that he failed at the film and put it away. 20 years later, he decided to basically strike a new print to give to his kids. And the projectionist was like laughing hysterically while they were showing it. And so he thought, well, maybe there's something to it after all. So it got what seems like a rather successful one, 20 years afterwards. His other films are, a lot of them you can't access. He has a few books that he's published. For most of his career, since the mid-60s, he was a professor of film at Yale. And he published various scripts, both scripts for the films he made and ones he didn't get to make. There are like 2 or 3 volumes of his scripts. But he never, because of the fact that he couldn't turn himself into a brand, because it was almost like with each film, he'd start from scratch, or so it seems. I've only seen maybe a total of 4 of his films. One I could recommend a lot, if you can find it on YouTube or somewhere like that, is a documentary called Dying, that she did for the PBS in 1976, that contrasts 3 different families dealing with the death of I think a father in each case, or at least in any case, a member of the family. And it actually has a kind of message that's implied in the order in which the sequences are shown, but otherwise there's no commentary. It just shows you the 3 families coping with the death of a loved one. I think that's really all I would have to say about this, except that I think the lead character in this movie was a professional, but many of the people in this film, the actors, are non-professionals. And he found in all kinds of walks of life, including people who were sort of like living in the New York boroughs and so on, that he just came across while he was preparing the film. Anyway, I hope you enjoy it as much as I do. Thanks.